So the round area, we use the round part of the file. We'll work on that. And the bump, we're going to use the flat part of the file. So you're just going to clean up all the sawing marks. Get your lines where you want them to be. Clean up your edges. So I'll do part of this shape. And you can compare to the part I didn't do. So once you have your edge done, then you can go at a 45-degree angle. Same with this part, I do the curved on the inside curve and the flat on the bump. So work back and forth with your file. So I'm just beveling the edge so it's smooth and not so sharp. And you would do that on both sides. So you can see I did this portion here. You can feel it and look at the reflection compared to the part I didn't do.
It just finishes it.
Yeah. That's all we're doing now is all the steps for the finishing or texturing, surface treatment processes.
For sure.
And in these cases, there's different shapes. So they might be mixed up, so you might have to search another case for some shapes. There's triangles. Let's see a triangle in those two. I think I'll turn the music down some more. Okay, so you might need some other styles of files to get in certain spaces. So maybe if I had a curve that was too small for this half round to fit in, I might use a round file to reach in there. Or if I had a triangle or a sharp corner, this triangle file might work well if the angle matches. And you can also go at an angle to really get in when you're beveling the corner. But like I said, these files are quite a bit coarser than that new one there. And then there's also this one file that only has teeth on the flat area and not on the edges. So if you're up against, say, the triangle edge, you'll only do the flat part. You won't accidentally file off the other side. Like with this one, it's got grit there too. So even though I'm filing the base, I might accidentally file some on that side. So just be careful of that. So yeah, you just clean up your edge, then go at an angle to smooth that edge off. and you'll be doing this on both sides. If you had really small sections that you've cut out, like maybe here I've cut out, you know, a zigzag, but it's too small to get the file in, or some other shape, whatever shape, some really small shapes, and you want to fix it a bit, then you could use the diamond burrs. So they have diamond grit on them, and there's some pointy ones here, and they can reach some areas that you wouldn't normally be able to reach. So with this tool though, you want to be careful not to stay in one spot too long and go slow. If you stay in one spot too long, you could make a gouge. Just keep it moving. So you could go into really tight areas with the point of this tool. And then once again, you can bevel it with this as well. So that's about it for the interior area. You could maybe, your kits have sandpaper in them, you could take a little square, fold it in half, you'll have a crisp edge. You could maybe use that to sand in, you know, a long line that's too small for a file. So for the outside, for these edges or for the straight part, so if you had a straight area and you wanted to, you know, make it finished and you want it to be for sure straight, you can use the flat file. Like so. So I'm still looking at my reflection to see that I've filed everything off that I want off. And I should mention that the files only cut on the upward stroke, unlike the saw that only cuts on the downward stroke. But you can still go back and forth, but don't just go this way because then you won't be doing anything. Then for your edges, you could use the file to round your edges off. Like so. You can go at an angle to round your edge. Both sides. If you had a curve cut, like if you had some shape like this cut out of your outside edge, then we also have a half round large file that you could go in there and clean up anything that's an inside curve. Any questions so far about the filing? Okay, so oftentimes on the outside, I skip the filing and jump right into the snap-on disc. So these discs have grit on the inside there. And they're plastic and flexible. So it's on this part. So when I'm using the flex shaft like this, I'm not leaning against the bench pin, I'm over here. And I might support my hand on my other hand. And I can round off this corner. So take advantage of the flexibility of this. You can get your corner nice and smooth. It's a quick way to do your filing or your shaping. And you can bevel your edge too. And this has a bit of a finer finish than the filing did. So you can compare the two. I'll pass that around. And I call these snap-on sanding discs. These are one of my favorite tools. Yeah.
It seems pretty forgiving too.
They
Like,
do
you
wear
can-
though, and they'll break
But
eventually.
I mean, like, at least if you're using the hand one, it's not as, I don't know, you can make a mistake.
Right.
This one is a lot easier not to, maybe.
Now, if, you know, the offcuts there, quite a small piece, how would you hold that?
I should
or-
grab one of those. I have some over here.
Yeah, I guess we have really small pieces nowadays.
So for the outside, with the really deep areas, I would use the file. But everything else, you know, up here should be able to be reached by the snap-on disc. So let's see what we can do with this. So I would just hold this. So it reaches pretty far down. Sometimes I move my tool, sometimes I'll move my metal. Or a combination of both. So with this, you'll use a medium speed on the foot pedal. Don't go too fast. And then you can do the edge. So just one spot it didn't quite reach, so we'll just finish that off. File. So it finishes it up really nice.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So next, we're going to deal with our surface. So the surface might have some scuffs or scratches. We're going to finish our surface with sandpaper sticks. So I have wet dry sandpaper just wrapped on paint stir sticks. And we have the 150 grit, which is the coarsest grit. And 280 would be the next, 320. 400, 600, and 1,000 is our finest. So the higher the number, the finer. So with this, we can also, with the filing that we did, we can smooth that out more. This cuts in any direction. We can do the surface. Usually I'll go in a circular motion. Because this was cut on the shear, this edge is slightly higher up than the rest. The reason I do a circular motion is then we don't get any directional marks happening. This makes it more uniform. So you're going to do the 150 grit if you have deep scratches, like that scratch I just made to show you if I had a curve, like I'm just trying to work that out now. But if you didn't have deep scratches, you could start with the 280 instead of the 150 grit. So with whatever grit you're starting with, you want to get all your scratches out with the low grit first. Same as woodworking, hey?
Absolutely.
Hmm.
Don't skip a, you can't skip it.
Plus,
A grit.
you don't want to try getting your scratches out with a high one because it might take you 24 hours or something. Yeah. So you're going to think, oh, I'm just scratching it, but every tool leaves a scratch or a mark. We're just doing finer and finer scratches. So this grit is a scratch, but this 1000 grit is just a finer scratch. Same with the saw blade was our coarsest, then the file, then the sandpapers, and then the high polish. There's two different compounds. So the Gray Star is a high polish, but the Rouge will be a super high polish, and that has grit in it too, just really super fine. So everything's a scratch. Hi. How's it going?
How are you?
Good.
You still got paint under your fingernails?
Maybe a little bit. So I'll pass this around. You can see my line hasn't quite disappeared yet, but see how the 150 grit scratch looks. You just want it to look all uniform before you go to the next grit. And then the rest of the grits are pretty quick in comparison to getting out the scratches initially. So now I'm going to do a 280. And then I'll do a 320. So it really starts to transform once you do these finishing steps compared to the raw metal. Sometimes I'll just hold it in my hand when I'm sanding rather than using the bench pen. So I didn't get every single scratch out, but you'll get the idea. So no matter what you're doing, I'm going to show you a bunch of texturing in a bit. You're going to prepare your metal first up to the 400 grit before you do any texturing or letter stamping or roll printing, because it would be hard to get your, or impossible even, to get your scratches out after you've done a hammer texture, say. So you want to get all that cleaned up first. So just do all your pieces up to a 400 grit before you do any texturing. So that's what it looks like. I could have done more at a lower grit, but just look at this corner here, and that's the 400 grit. If you are gonna be doing the high polishing, then you would do the last two sandpapers. So you could do the 600 and then 1,000. Sometimes I'll go in one direction just to check if I still have scratches. So I can see that I still have some scratches.
Oh, yeah.
So really, if this wasn't just a demo, I would go back to a lower grit and get those out. Can you see them?
And if you realize that later on, you could
Just go back
start
down.
over kind of
Yeah.
thing? Yeah.
Yeah.
Cool.
And then 1,000.
Do you do this on every metal type?
Yeah, yeah. Brass, copper, silver, yeah. So the corner's getting pretty smooth. So that was 1,000 grit that I ended with.
Mm.
So a couple different surface treatments you could do with these little tools here is, this one here would not be for the surface. This is just for edges. You could use the diamond burr. So you could go in a back and forth motion. It'll give you a frosty texture. And you could go across the other direction. Or you could go in a circular motion, just overlapping circles. So that's the round diamond burr. Next, we could do a fiber wheel. These are a bit worn down, but should still do it. This will give you more of a satin kind of effect. So they all have directional marks. If I went the other direction, you would see the difference. And once again, you could go more circular. You can kind of see that it does have a direction. It's kind of a matte look. Or
Almost
satin
like an
sheen.
airbrush.
Like that.
Airbrush. Almost. Cool.
And we have a brass brush. This will give you more of a shine.
Would that compare to any of those grits in the sandpaper?
Well, this doesn't remove anything, so it's just burnishing, like rubbing against. So if there's scratches, you'll still see the scratches. Whereas the fiber wheel will remove material, so possibly if we had a fresh one, it would remove your scratches eventually.
Okay.
And the diamond burr does remove material too. But it's always easier if you've removed your scratches first. I think that's it for now. A lot of these other tools would be used maybe later on or in level 2 when we do chain making. These will be used when we do a band ring for cleaning up the inside of the ring. So I think that's it for now for those. So let's move on to the main work area there. So first I'm going to show you different hammering techniques. These are just some same pieces you have in your kit. I just made some sections with the shear. So there's different hammers in this container here. These are all for hitting your metal, your brass, silver, or copper, not your tools. There's round-headed hammers, which are also called chasing hammers. So there's different sizes. You see the different size heads on those. Here's the small one and the large one. So we're going to use the blocks to hammer our metal onto. We're going to hold the metal with our other hand. We're going to hold the hammer from the end and just use our wrists. We want the hammer weight to be landing and doing the work. We don't want to be using our shoulder and have it kind of frozen. We want it to swing. The other thing I should mention is I always wipe this because just during the day stuff can, dust and debris can land in there. And we're pretending that I've already sanded this up to a 400 grit. Okay? So you're just going to hang on to it with your other hand. Swing the hammer in your wrist. So that's the smallest one, and we'll use the largest one. Oftentimes I'll also wipe the ends of my tools too, for the same reason. You can also use it along your edge. I just wanted to bevel it.
Can you like intermingle the two?
Yeah, you could.
Like if you wanted some kind of
Sure.
box texture?
Sure. Yeah. Next I'm going to use this flat-headed hammer, which is also called a goldsmith hammer, for the flat part. If you're getting marks like that, just adjust your angle of your hammer so the whole thing is hitting. And then it's kind of like a bark texture. You can see that it's stretching the metal.
Oh, yes.
Yeah. You go the other direction. You could radiate. So it is stretching, and whenever you hammer or roll print and stuff that I'll show you in a minute, it's gonna work harden your metal. So right now, the metal is dead soft. It's like plasticine. It's really soft. And all your metal in your kit should be dead soft. But as we work it, it becomes hard and springy. And then keep that in mind. If it's not flattening out again and stuff, then we can bring it back to the dead soft state with the torch. It's called annealing. So if you need to do that, let me know and we'll start using the torch. As I'm working this piece, I might want to take the rawhide mallet and just flatten it out again. So the rawhide mallet won't affect or wreck your texture that you're putting on it. So next we could do some letter stamping. Well, first there's some punches here. I have a round one and an oval one. So with the hammer, you can't really aim where each dot would go, but if you wanted to have dots in this particular spot, you could aim with your tool and give it one hit. You could aim and then marks that way. As you can see me. And then this other one here is kind of an oval shape. Also, we have letter stamps and number stamps. So there's two different sizes of letters and numbers. So I'll just randomly pick some letters. So sometimes people write the letter on this way, so when that's facing you, it's right side up. So you want to make sure when you're forming your word that it's right side up. And oftentimes people will take a piece of masking tape and tape across and onto the block, and they'll use the base of the masking or the top of the masking tape as a guide to get your
Now, that's
letters
just a good
straight.
idea. That is, I just
Yeah.
did that dating my chairs.
Did you do that too? Use masking tape?
No,
No?
no.
And then it went a little crooked?
No, well, no, I made a jig, but it was
Oh,
spaced
yeah.
out really big. And, but.
So yeah, you can do dates, names, sayings, anything you want. And sometimes I'll just use the letter O as a texture. So you could just overlap the O's. Kind of like on this one.
Does it show on the other side or does it stay to the side?
It kind of shows where it's hitting the block, but afterwards you can't really tell.
Yeah.
So another thing we can do is make lines with brass wire. We have brass wire hanging on the wall here. And the masking tape hangs on that wall too. So you're going to take a snip and just cut a piece off. And then you can use pliers to form a shape, just as long as your shape doesn't have overlap. You don't want your wire to overlap with this treatment. Let's do some random whatever. And then, yeah, let's use another piece. Then you're going to tape it onto your metal and onto the block to hold it in place. So now we're going to hit it really hard with the rawhide mallet. And the reason we use brass wire is it's the hardest of the three metals we're working with. So it goes into the softer metal better than, say, a copper wire. So you get a nice crisp, pass it around. Nice crisp line or shape. You could even maybe form kind of letters.
Doodle something.
Yeah, for sure.
That's really cool.
So I'm going to show you dapping. Maybe I'll just put a few marks on this piece. Something random. Take this and this and my shape. So over here we have, these are called daps and blocks, or it's called a dapping set. And so there's different holes and different punches. So once again, I clean off the punches, I clean out the holes, because any debris can mark your metal. So you want to make sure the punch matches the hole. We wouldn't want to put this one in, the one that's too small, because then if we hit, this edge will make a mark in our punch. So just double check before you put your metal in that you have the right punch for the hole. And I'm going to do that one first. So you can have your design concave or convex. So decide that when you're putting it in the block. So then we're going to use the rawhide mallet to hit our tool. And the larger the hammer, the better for this. Then you get more leverage compared to, say, this little one here. And it starts to form and gives a three-dimensional look to it. You can work your way up. Like I could have started this one with a smaller punch. You want to make sure though that it's not too big, because if you do that and punch it in, this edge is going to make cut marks in your metal and it'll mess up your design. But I could go into one of these. I'm going to try that one. So I'm just going to check which, I think that's the right one. So this one fits in that one. And my corners are in. And this won't wreck your design, your texturing either. And you can go as deep as you can. You can keep working your way down in sizes until it hangs over the edge, and then you would have to stop.
I have a question. So if you wanted to do like texturing on one side and then have like the buffing on the other side, would you do you would do all that before you formed it, right?
The texturing you would do before you formed it. The sanding you would do before you formed it. But do you mean buffing, this kind of buffing?
No, sorry, I meant like
The
the
fiber wheel?
yeah.
You would would probably maybe do it before, but then touch it up after. Yeah. So the shape that I cut out, you could dome that as well. So just really bring something out that looked like nothing before.
So far away.
So that could be even, you know, soldered on later to a ring. Or it could be added to another dome piece with a hole drilled through and 2 jump rings, or 1 jump ring hanging both pieces. Different ways to incorporate that. So this is also a dapping set, it's just larger. These ones though, unscrew, so sometimes they come loose, so just make sure they're tight before you go to use them. Wipe these off, and these are double-sided, so once again you're going to find the one that fits the right bowl or hole or whatever. So there's also this block called a swagging block, and this, whereas that, hammering it down in all directions, this is just going this way. So once again, you want to make sure it fits. If it hung over the edge, then you would go up a size. For the punch, we're going to use the handle of these. So check that you find a handle that fits good. And then we can just put that in there. And use the rawhide mallet. Be careful it's not hanging over the edge or you could get a mark.
With that one, you could make like one side more curved than the other.
More what?
More curved than the other.
One side. It's going to be the same because it's.
Because it was kind of like, at first it was kind of angled.
That's just because I hadn't hit. I think I hit this side a bit more with my hammer.
Can you do that?
Hmm?
Can you like keep it like that?
If you wanted to,
Okay.
yeah. So this gives it a nice shape too.
And the burnish is still, no, is that a burnish? What is that? The wire on there, do you call that the marking?
The wire is an imprint.
An imprint, okay, and do you call all those imprints?
Well, it's a texture of some sort. I call them textures or surface treatments.
Okay.
Hammered in wire, I guess.
Yeah.
Yeah. Hammer textures, leather stamps. Yeah. Okay. Are you just getting ideas now for your projects coming up? Okay, that's good.
So I'm asking so many questions.
With that?
So I'm asking so many questions.
Yeah. And if you're gonna do a hole for your jump ring, when it's flat, I like to do my center punch divot first. Just a light tap, then dome it, and then drill the hole. If you drill the hole first, then it distorts it, and sometimes it kind of closes in and becomes a long oval or something. So yeah, just do the center punch first and then drill after.
Do you do that on the metal square?
On this part?
Yeah.
Yeah, you're always going to use the blocks whenever you're using the center punch or the hammers or the stamps. Yeah, it supports your metal, whereas on here it's wood, it might not support it the same way. It looks like someone forgot their stone. Next, we're going to do roll printing. So, for roll printing, These are some examples of roll printing. I can pass them around. Some of them have been oxidized as well.
You're gonna wear that today as well?
Yeah.
Get
Right
the
now.
Good. That's excited.
So with roll printing, there's different things you can roll print with. You could use fabrics, ribbon, burlap, different things like that. I find that nylon and polyester work better than, say, a cotton. Also, I'll use cardstock. So here's some cardstock. It's 110-pound paper. And if I'm going to do this piece, I might cut further in. Then when it rolls through, I'll have a bit of a border, like on this edge here. And then I'll do some cutouts, and then my metal will puff through the recessed or the negative spaces. What should I do for shape?
So is that how people get textures of like different leaves and stuff like that in metal, or
Well,
is that a
you
different?
can't use organic leaves, like real leaves, because it just crumbles and crushes. It doesn't retain. I think maple leaf seeds might work,
Okay.
but most organic material doesn't work.
Okay.
In the scrap booking section, sometimes you can find those metallic kind of leaves. Those work really well if you can find them. Do you know
Okay.
what I mean?
I think so. I think I
Yeah,
understand.
they're kind of like see-through.
Skeleton leaves?
Yeah, something like that. They work really well. Maybe some lace, but the polyester works better than some of the other materials. So I'm just going to use this shape on this piece of metal, and I'm going to cut off a bit of my end here. Like that. And then I'll find a piece of fabric for another piece here. So we have some fabric in this bag. Feel free to bring in some pieces of your own. Some of this has been already used. You can only use a piece once because it crushes, it loses its ability to make a right mark or a good mark. I have some nylon mesh in here. That looks really good. Might even all use that by now. And some people have donated some things too.
I look like a lovely donated.
I'm not sure what that will be. I'm going to try this netting. So I will just grab a scissors. So for the fabric, you could wrap it around and do both sides. This one I'm going to do both sides. And this one I'll just do the top. So we're going to come over here to the roller mill. Sorry. So this is the rolling mill. We always want to make sure our rollers are clean. Don't use any wet metal on here or it'll rust. Don't use any tape or glue. Sometimes I have to. And then if you have debris left over, just wipe it all off when you're finished using it. So you can see that it has a space here. So it's quite a big space right now. The best thing to do is, because your copper and your silver are the same thickness, do a little test on your copper before you actually do on your silver. So you have the right tension and you're happy with the result. Because it might look nice, but then when you push it through, it might not turn out like you expect. So I have to guess then, for now, what space I'm gonna have in here. So this one closes when you turn it counterclockwise. So the only way I know if I have the right tension is when I start turning the handle. So you don't want it to be too easy or too hard. So that's feeling perfect for this one. You want to start all material at the same time. You don't want to start with your material starting lower, or else you can't gauge the tension right away.
Oh my, oh my. Oh my, oh my.
Oh, that's cool.
So it almost looks like a scale, like a fish skin or
Yeah.
something.
Oh, that's so cool.
So that you can see how this has been destroyed now. You wouldn't be able to reuse it. It's crumbled, kind of.
Oh,
It's
yeah.
flattened, broken apart in some spots. Your metal is also going to stretch when you use this. So some of these things I'm showing you, you might do the treatment first and then cut out your shape after, so it doesn't distort. But if you're, say, doing a circle and you're hammering it with the round-headed hammer, then you could do this cutout first and then hammer it. But you wouldn't want to do a circle and then roll print it, because it'll become an oval. So my paper's a bit thicker maybe, so I might need to loosen it slightly. But I'm going to start it just to see how it feels. You also want to make sure you're on the flat area, not on the ribbed area. Make sure both materials start at the same time. You wouldn't want to go like that, because then you can't feel your tension right away. So you want both materials to start at the same time. And once again, this would also already be sanded up to a 400 grit. So it's a bit tighter than, I could have had it a little looser.
That's so cool.
And the paper leaves are really, what did you say?
I said that's so cool.
That's
Yeah.
so cool. Like, no doubt about it.
And the paper leaves a really nice texture too.
Yeah.
What happens if you use the riveted side of the roll?
I will show you,
Okay.
yeah.
What kind of paper is that?
It's 110-pound paper.
Okay.
So could you could use like a textured paper,
Yeah, like
watercolor?
or does it?
Some people have tried and then it didn't really do anything. So you have to just experiment. There are lots of cool texture papers, but sometimes they don't hold up. So this will, I'll just go straight. It's pretty nice. On both sides. Yeah. It's actually for making wire square, round wire square. That's what it's on there for, but you could definitely use it for roll printing. Any questions?
I think you should make cufflinks out of this.
That look good, yeah.
I don't know how to do it, but you could
Yeah.
do it.
So if you had a more complex shape, you'd want to do this first.
First, yeah.
And so you'd need to do all the sanding and everything.
Up to 400.
First, okay.
Just the surface. You don't have to worry about the edges yet.
Okay,
And then,
cool.
But not if you're, like if you're cutting like a circle or something, you do that after.
yeah. Make your texture first and then
Okay.
cut your circle
Okay.
after. Yeah.
Okay.
So you just need to prepare the surface, not even worry about the edges. Just sand up to 400, do your texture treatment, and then cut out your shape.
Okay. Is that what you're saying?
No, it's good to hear more.
Do you end up using these for things? Like your example ones?
Well, sometimes. I mean, I work more in silver. And
Yeah.
you could do the same in silver. Brass is a bit of a harder metal, so you might not get the same as deep of an imprint as you get on the two softer metals. So now I'm going to show you oxidizing. So I'll use these.
You know.
So we'll go over to the sink area. So
Copper, right?
this is copper.
Okay.
Yeah,
Oh,
yeah.
okay.
Sure, I'm
Not brass, it's
Okay.
copper, yeah. So I'm gonna use this solution called liver of sulfur. So it smells like rotten eggs. So whenever you want to use it, I will prepare it for you. So I just use the hottest tap water. Might take a few minutes. So normally at this point, it should be almost the last step. You can't solder after you do this or it burns it off. So you're gonna have a hole on this somewhere or a pierced out area. I don't, so I'm not gonna just use it. So you guys will have a hole of some sort so you can use hook. This is what we're doing for dipping. So this stuff works best fresh and hot.
Just like dinner.
Kind of like that, but it's probably not as tasty. And I just use a small amount for this, maybe that much. And I stir it up. Let's put a lid on for the moment. So to prepare your metal for patinaing, I'm going to brass brush. Brass brushing is another treatment I like to do for my surface. A lot of the time, I will sand my pieces up to 400 grit and I'll just do the brass brush. And it's just a fine, a mid-shine. It just burnishes. So I do that a lot as a finish as well. But for right now, we're just going to dip it in this detergent water, and we're just going to scrub off any fingerprints, oils, or dirt, so that it can accept the oxidizing from the liver of sulfur. And you'll do both sides.
This is a really random question, but if someone like wrote on paper and then you put it through the roll press, would the writing come out?
No, it wouldn't. You have to cut it out with an X-Acto knife.
Oh, okay.
Something like that, maybe.
So the negative space then would be what?
Letters pushing up. So I have done that with like block kind of printed letters, and it worked all right, yeah. In level 3, I teach etching on copper, and then you can photocopy the writing onto the resist paper, and then you could etch it.
So then it could be like someone else's writing.
Yes.
Oh.
And maybe Janice has a sample.
Sorry, that was kind of a random question.
That's a good question, yeah.
Be nice memorial stuff.
Mhm.
Or
Yeah, that's what I was
Yeah.
thinking.
Isn't that a good idea?
Do you wear it? Yeah. So this is my mom's handwriting.
Aww.
And that's her name.
Right.
I know, right?
Yeah.
And she passed away 2 years ago, so that's pretty special.
That's nice.
And that's on copper.
It's very thick copper compared to what we're working with.
Well, it's actually a hollow form structure too.
Mhm. Which you learn in
Yeah.
level 3, yeah.
Definitely
So that's
go to
exactly
level
what you're
3.
Yeah.
thinking of.
Because I thought of like my grandma's recipe cards.
Yeah, exactly.
I know that sounds weird to have like a recipe on a piece of jewelry, but I thought that'd be
No,
so
that's
cool
not
as like a
weird.
background.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's lovely.
Yeah, and I have my dad, some of his writing, that's what I did, I etched it, so.
Well, thanks for sharing.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
So once we've brushed with the circuit our pieces, then you would use the hangers to grab your piece, and then you would dangle it in there. But since I don't have a hole, I'm just going to use a tweezer. We'll do this one first. So we're going to heat it up under hot water. Get it nice and warm. We're going to dip and stir. You can see it's starting to change really quick. You can rinse to stop it. Which is what I have so far. I can dip it some more. So it has a color, different color ranges that it goes through. Now it's kind of more of a bronzy color. Oh, it's so cool.
What's the darkest color?
I'm going to do that on this one. So this, I'll show you the ranges as it's spinning. Then it goes lighter, kind of, a gold light color. And it's starting to get darker again. So you just stir, keep checking. We're getting darker. You can let it go black. It's almost there. And rinse it off. So when it gets this dark color on the copper, it seems to form this kind of powdery layer that rubs off. It doesn't seem to do that on silver.
Will it continue to keep rubbing off or?
Well, I'm going to brass brush it, and it's going to be a gunmetal gray. If you left it in too long, the oxide layer can build up too thick, and then it will flake off. So you don't want to leave it in too long. And you see how quick it works fresh? Say in an hour you're going to come back and use it. It's going to take longer than it's working right now. And then eventually it won't really do anything at all. So I'll just brass brush half of this. And this is my favorite color on copper. Like a gunmetal.
Oh, cool.
Pass that around if you want.
That's really cool.
Does that finish last?
Yeah, now that I brass brushed it, it took off the powdery part, plus it made it shiny again. Once again, I'll heat up my piece. That's a pretty color.
Oh, and then you can just do certain sections of it?
Yeah, you could.
Almost like orange dip dyeing.
that?
It's almost like dip dyeing with clothes and stuff.
Oh, yeah.
That's so cool.
To make it almost look like brass. If we brass brushed one of the lower colors, not lower, but the colorful colors, the first colors, it might take all the color off. So for the brass brushing, it's best to do it when it's at that dark color. So I'm going to just show you a couple more things on this to finish it off. So make sure your metal's dry before you go back using any of the steel tools, just so they don't get rusty. So you could, like this color seems pretty stable. It didn't get that chalky residue like the dark. You could sand. This one I sanded everything off and left the color in the recessed areas,
Oh, yeah.
which makes it look really nice. Or you could just use a burnisher. So this one I cut the end off and made it round, unlike, you know, a commercial one is quite pointy. So this rounded burnisher, you could just rub it along the edge.
Is that what it's for?
One of the things it's for. And it gives you a nice shiny edge that contrasts with the dark.
And so essentially that just rubs off a little layer.
It just kind of rubs it, yeah, and makes it shiny.
And so that's why you want to oxidize the very last step, because you
Mostly,
can't go back to
Reminds me
texture,
of like
because
a
it'll
filter
just
too.
Right.
rub it off.
Different colors within a flame.
Another one that's really nice with the burnisher is this hammer texture. So you can go over the high spots and it really makes it sparkle. And then the lower areas are still oxidized. This works good on smaller textures.
Oh, yes.
You could use sandpaper, like a 400 grit. And you could sand the high spots. And then I would brass brush it again. And then you would have that nice contrast between the dark and light areas.